Hello and welcome back for episode 2 of the Irish Mags Show, brought to you by the Irish Mags NUFC Supporters Group. My name is Paul. I will be your host for today. And joining me are my partners in crime every week from now on, it would seem. We have Alan and we have Krisho. Welcome in, lads.
How's it going, Paul? How are you?
Hey, Paul. How are you getting on? Nice to see you, as always.
Very good. Alan, you had a good week?
Any week that I get to watch Newcastle is a great week in my head. Let's be honest about it. Had a great one this week.
Sure.
Yeah.
I cannot disagree with that. What about yourself, Krisho? I mean, I know you had a good week, but I think you've had a good weekend as well from what we're picking up. I think there was pints as well on a couple of different days. Am I wrong?
There was a particularly large amount of pints. I was just going to go kind of easy, but it didn't work out that way because of our fantastic performance on Saturday night, which basically blew me out of my pants, if I can use that expression. I don't know whether I can or not, but I'm going to do it anyway.
It's on the internet now, and we can never take it back.
I've already said it. But yeah, I had a couple watching the match. I think the guys on the group heard me record lots of shouting voice messages into the group, and then I decided to go out on afterwards. And I don't remember anything until yesterday evening. Fantastic, brilliant weekend. And I thank Newcastle for every inch of it, every minute of it. Brilliant.
Do you think Eddie Howe knows the impact his high-performing mags and all of his coaching efforts and everything they do on the pitch is having on your social
liver?
No. I think I'm going to be on the injury list too very soon, and not be able to drink ever again. But look, long may it continue, gentlemen. Yeah, and I'll keep at it. And as you can tell a little bit, like I said to you, I am a bit sick. But I've only myself to blame, essentially, for being out for, the whole weekend, drinking, celebrating Newcastle, shouting at strangers in the street about how good we are, etc.
Look, we would never get in your way. And judging by the amount of Lemsip we've seen you drink before we started recording, we're not responsible for anything this man says.
No.
I'm a little bit wobbly.
Yeah, especially bearing in mind, like, we don't have Tev here with us this week. So the listeners may notice that Tev isn't here to keep an eye on us. We're officially free reign, and we can do and say whatever we want. Kind of.
Yes, we can. Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
we already did.
Yeah.
Super. Right. We'll move on. So look, in case anyone listening has been living under a rock for the last week or so, we released our inaugural episode last week, and we had an incredible response from our audio listeners on Spotify and Apple, as well as those of you who were watching over on YouTube. So we want to thank everyone that's listened to us so far. We've got great feedback. Lads, did you know that our audience has stretched beyond Ireland and the UK as far as Australia and the US? I think it's safe to say the Irish Mags have gone global. You weren't expecting that, are you, lads?
Not this quick anyway, no. Global this quickly. Brilliant.
No.
Unless now either of you have just direct relatives living in Australia or the US, and you've just
nothing to do with me.
No. A couple of colleagues in Malaysia that they kind of knew that we had this group and everything else, and they love it. They love it, and they support Villa and Man United. And there I go with the Man United thing again, but it's true.
Always bringing them up, always on his mind. Let's be honest about it. Yeah.
Right.
But I know what we're going to talk about them.
I'm officially going to start off a brand new tradition on this show, on this podcast, which will be that Krisho has to put €1 in the jar every time he mentions Manchester United. Done.
Into the Christmas drink fund.
Yes. Excellent stuff.
Okay.
Well, look.
Agreed.
Thanks again for everyone who tuned in, obviously last week and this week. Don't forget to drop us a follow or a like or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And if you have the opportunity to rate the podcast as well, that would be great. And one other thing, be sure to look out for Irish Mags NUFC on all of the socials. We have producer Cahill at the wheel on a lot of the socials. Mainly, I guess it's because most of us here are too old to do TikTok. But good man Cahill, he's absolutely doing a blinder on.
I don't really understand TikTok, so but
no. You have enough problems as it is, Krisho. You don't need to.
I really do.
Stay away.
Stay away. Moving swiftly on. We have a load to get through this week. Over the next hour, we're going to look at what has been an incredible week for Newcastle United on both domestic and European fronts. Eyes emoji. We will chat about latest news and events within the Irish Mags community and the wider Newcastle United community. We probably will spend a few minutes talking about that draw in the FA Cup because there's a lot of commotion around this one. We'll fill you in later. We'll look ahead some of the upcoming vital fixtures that we have coming up in this busy calendar and this busy time of year. And linking into that, we might just have a little chat about what each of us would like most for Christmas when it comes to on-field or off-field matters. And finally, if there is time, and we're going to try and make sure we have time for this, guys, I might even decide that we'll have our first ever Irish Mags Show quiz, where I get to pit your lads' Newcastle knowledge against each other and see who will emerge with bragging rights this week. No pressure, boys.
No pressure at all.
I'm loving it. I can't wait. Loving it.
I can tell you, Alan has a massive smile on his face because he knows that Krisho is dosed up on Limsip and doesn't really have a clue what's going on.
That is very true. I'm hallucinating nearly here.
And the other thing we haven't told him, Alan, is all the questions are related to Manchester United. So we'll get that jar up to about 10 euro very, very quickly.
You guys are the worst.
Excellent.
The worst. Right. We'll move on to the next section. Alan, I think we're going to come to you first because we like to do a little bit of a Irish Mags update before we get into the true meat of the pod. I believe we've had not one but two meetups this week. Obviously, busy week for Newcastle United. One for the PSG game in the Bleecker Street Bar, and one again in the Camden for the Man United game. And I mean, nobody's surprised that you, of course, were at both, because why would you not be?
Let's be honest, I'm at everything. Like PSG meetup was devastating and brilliant on the same role. Great turnout. Last minute, what can you do? Bit of a kick in the teeth, but we'll take it on the chin. The second meetup for Man Red in the Camden, that was because our beloved Johnny from the Bleecker decided that he'd like to swan off to the Gallagate and watch from there, which I thought was a disgrace. Like, imagine leaving us without points. So we had to have a mini meetup in our old haunt for the Man Red game. So, which was a bit unusual because it was 75% Christmas parties, 23% Man United fans, and then the five of us were the rest of the people. So we loved it because we were the only ones making noise at the end of the game. It was great.
Get in there.
I was just going to say, yeah. And even if Johnny was away, there was no stopping Krisho from getting at his points, as we've already heard.
No.
Not up in here.
I stopped anywhere I could. Anywhere they'd let me in with this hat on.
There's a lot of pubs in Dublin.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Great to see. Great to hear that. I mean, I saw some of the pictures, particularly the PSG game. I know we get great kind of groups and numbers for the Champions League games as well. And like, even for me, I'm down in Galway, and I would love to just jump in the car one of those Tuesday, Wednesday evenings. Fortunately, can't do for the next one because I'll be taking a slightly further journey over to St. James's Park. But we'll get to that. Yeah.
Rub it in, why don't you?
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Look, if a Galway man has the opportunity to wind up a couple of Dublin lads or Wicklow lads, depending on who you are, he's never going to. Krisho, over to you.
Yes.
Sticking within the community, and from what I've seen in the WhatsApp group, there was quite a few members that travelled this week, particularly for the Man United game. Of course, your second favourite club, as we all know, but they were outdone by Eddie's battling 11, who've now started 3 games in 7 days, like the same 11 who've played the majority of the minutes. Any stories or news doing the rounds from those that went to the game? I've seen a couple of pictures.
Yeah, there was lots and lots of pictures and videos shared. Some of the guys got some really excellent tickets, like right up, either in the Leeds end or in the Gallagate or the East End. They were right up by the pitch, right up by halfway line. And a lot of them met up before. A lot of them obviously met up after. A lot of them met up in the airport. So it's just lovely to see that when the game was on, and I knew a lot of people were going to go for Man United, and I think they did open it up for more international tickets to be sold, and we're classified as international members. So, just right good crack in general. Flags waving, points being had, and really just people are starting to recognise us a lot more. I know we've already been recognised before, but this gear is getting us noticed all over the place. Anywhere we go, people are going, "Are you those guys from the? Oh, hang on, where do I get one of them?" And like the fact that we have our initials on them as well, I think a lot of people have mentioned at the weekend that people are really liking this and digging it. It's real personalised. But yeah, all I can tell, even if we would have lost or drawn or whatever it was, it seems like everybody had a really good crack and got some really good memories and took some really good photos. And this is what we need: build and build and build. It's not just going to Luton at home. Man United at home. It's Luton at home or Brentford or something. We want a good collection of people. We went to Crystal Palace, me and Alan and Tev and that, It's just a small group of us, but by George, we had a crack. It was unreal. It was, and I just can't wait to win in the ballot again. I don't know how well our members have been doing. I've entered 9 and I got 1. Have you guys been doing? Have you guys been doing all right in the ballots?
I'm 4 from 8, to be fair, so I'm doing quite well.
4 from 8. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I slightly less, more so just not being able to travel for the last few months, but just definitely changing in the new year. You'll be pleased to know. I think the first ballot I applied for, I was successful, and that was Aston Villa. So I was like, excellent, can only get better from here. Then the next ballot I applied for didn't get it, and the following one I didn't get it. So, what was that? 1 for 3 for now. But that's hopefully going to change now in the new year, and the only way is up. Just on the topic, Krisho, of Irish Mags gear, I suppose linking it to Newcastle gear. What's this about your gloves? We need to get this off your chest now on the table. What happened to your gloves?
This is, I mean, you know, and I think this is why I'm feeling a bit sick and my lemsip induced thing. But listen, I'm offering a €200 reward for finding my gloves. Wow. They are from 2008. They're original Adidas Newcastle crest embroidered winter gloves. They were with me on Crystal Palace in my bag. Everyone was with me. And I came back and I opened that bag on Saturday night to go down to meet Alan. And there is a random pair of black gloves in my bag that don't belong to me. So I think there might have been a bit of a swap-a-roo. Now, I was nobody in our group at all, obviously, because I was just with Alan with my bag at the end of the game. So other Alan's having a bit of a crack here with me. But somebody must have seen that I had them on, took them off, put them in my bag, put them down. Obviously had many gin and tonics and pints, and I just carried the bag home. And then when I opened it up last night or Saturday night, they're not there anymore. And I've had them for 2008. God, it's a long time. So I'm very sad. So €200 reward, gentlemen. If anybody can either find them online or point me to a link where I could get them again, which is impossible, I think. But Paul, they have vanished off the face of the earth.
Yeah, the search continues, I suppose. I mean, I'm like, the first thing that came into my mind was €200. Surely he can buy another pair of gloves for €200. Then I was in my mind going, how long is it going to take him to fill the Man United swear jar with €200? But sounds like they're priceless, both in terms of rarity and sentimental value, apparently.
Very much so they are. In fact, I was heartbroken, and I told Al, and I still haven't got over it. To this point, I just can't believe it, because you know when you go to reach for something because you know they're there, and you go, huh? What are these? I mean, don't get me wrong, these gloves are pretty nice, but they don't belong to me. I was like, where's the crest gone? So
I think we've inadvertently come up with a title for this week's show, which is going to be "The Gloves Are Off." Too soon.
Awful.
Too soon.
Should be ashamed of yourself.
If anybody has seen Chris Show's gloves around Newcastle, Dublin, Ireland, the internet, anywhere at all, please get in touch, and fingers crossed they'll turn up. Lovely. Right. Now we get to talk about a couple of interesting topics, lads. It has been one hell of a week for Newcastle United fans. I feel like we've had an incredible 2 years, but like, you know, when we recorded episode 1, I was buzzing. Obviously, it was pre PSG, so we had that little deflation at the end wasn't in our minds. We were just coming off the back of a 4-1 hiding of Chelsea. We then moved on. Obviously, we saw what happened in Paris, and we know how that turned out. But obviously, a lot's happened since, as well as the Man United game. Let's start with the PSG. We're going to touch on it just for a couple of minutes. I know it feels like a long time ago, but we were, I suppose, we're conscious. We haven't had a chat about it together, and I think, Alan, we could probably start with you. Really, just thinking about that performance, which it sucks to how much that's been overshadowed by that decision at the end. But that performance of those 11 lads in Paris, in the Parc des Princes, where PSG have been outstanding. Tell me what stood out for you watching that last week.
What stood out was absolutely everybody on that pitch. And we were just amazing from first whistle to last whistle. Bar an unfortunate, terrible decision by a referee. We're leaving Paris with 3 points, which no team really does. Let's be honest about it. But let's be honest. If someone had turned around when this draw was made and said, right, lads, you'll have on aggregate you'll beat PSG 5-2 with a 17-year-old becoming the third youngest Englishman to play in the Champions League. Would you have taken that? There's no question about it. We would absolutely have snapped the hand off of absolutely everyone. Like, don't get me wrong. From first whistle to last whistle, we defended unbelievable. It was just resolute defending from whistle one. But don't listen to that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Mbappe. I don't care what anyone says. We had a couple of chances. We arguably should have scored 2 goals. Isak missed a bit of a sitter in the first half, but he made up for it with a set finish from Miggy's shot. But as a former striker, I can tell you for nothing that goal will mean so much to Alexander Isak. There's nothing better as a striker to follow in a ball that a keeper has spilled and slam that thing home, because you're in the right spot at the right time, and it's exactly what you're taught as a young fella. Get in there, and if the keeper spills anything, you hammer that thing home, and he done it on the biggest stage. Another special mention, Jamal Lascelles, outstanding in Paris. Had Mbappe in his pocket. Nobody in their right mind would have thought they were going to say that 18 months ago, 2 years ago. He was amazing. Wasn't to be at the end of the day to get 3 points, but we all would have taken that point before the game. So tough to take, but we'll definitely take it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, every one of us, I don't care who you are. If anyone out there was offered a draw before the game, we all would have gotten in line. I think we went into that game thinking we might come out of this. I mean, first of all, with the Champions League off the table, but also potentially with Europe off the table, depending on other results. I'll come to that in a minute. So, yeah, like, I mean, like, Almiron was unbelievable. Trippier was unbelievable. You mentioned Lewis Miley there. A really good point as well, Alan. Like, the third youngest Englishman to play in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Bellingham and Foden. Like, if you just think about
Bellingham
those
and
names,
yeah,
and where those lads are,
he's in good company. And just another point on Lewis Miley. Start the first lockdown, he was 13 years old.
Oh God.
So
wow.
13 years old. Day one of the first lockdown, starting the Parc des Princes for Newcastle in the Champions League, and did not look out of place.
No,
that stat hurts me to read out.
Well, I mean, I can make it even worse if you like. He was probably about 2 years old when Krisho bought his gloves that he's since lost.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. It's just so true, Paul. So true.
So true.
I feel sorry for his brother, if I'm honest with you, because this guy's going to be a superstar.
Yeah.
This is another Matty Longstaff, Sean Longstaff story here.
Mm-hmm. Even like you said, we said Jude Bellingham, his brother Joby, as we know, is over on the other side of the northeast. That's as much as we should say about that, but it can't be easy, I suppose. Krisho,
yes,
we do need to spend a minute or two on that last minute penalty decision. The most heartbreaking thing that's happened in a while. Actually, just while I think of it, and you see Shay Given's tweet about it's not the first time. Or something about coming out of Paris with shit decisions, last minute decisions.
But Henri's handball.
Yes. We never forget.
Never forget.
Less said the better about that. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah, considering I share this apartment with a French lady, believe me, she doesn't get to forget.
Considering I was at that match, doesn't help.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's harsh.
Heartbreaking.
That's for another day.
Yes.
On the decision itself, right? There's a lot of talk about the referee and the decision and the VAR officials, and there's also, I suppose, that's mixed up with UEFA rules versus Premier League rules. I guess my question for you would be, like, is there a justification for the decision that was made from the ref's perspective, VAR perspective, and UEFA's perspective? And then one other thing I want you to tell me is, where the hell did 8 minutes come from? Because that's the one thing that baffles me.
Yeah, right. First of all, I was like Silas Mariner. I was in a catatonic fit for probably 35 to 40 minutes after that penalty was given. People were like checking on me and shaking me and stuff. Are you all right, dude? I was just like standing there with my head up and going, "What? Did that actually happen?" So here's the thing: it's not a confirmed stat, but from the Premier League and mixing in with the UEFA data, okay. It's over 94% of decisions are getting overturned when the referee goes to look at it at the screen, right? So people have become now accustomed that if the referee does run over to look at it, he's probably either going to stick with giving a penalty or he's going to overturn it and give a penalty. And that's a horrible thing, because I don't know whether you guys felt this, but when I saw him run over to that camera, I knew he was going to give a penalty. I didn't think he was going to go over and be super brave and say, no, I'm right. No, it's not. But the only reason why this was made, and I think I'm just going to say it. Yeah. So if people come looking for me at my address, come. This was made for financial reasons. Yeah. There's no way they're going to allow Paris Saint-Germain to be thrown out of the Champions League by lowly Newcastle United in their first year after 20 years. It's just not going to happen. In fact, if there could have been another penalty in the special 8 minutes that were given, they would have given that too. Yeah. All it would have been is even somebody heading it out of the box, they would have called for a penalty because they said he used his hand behind his back. Something, anything. Like I'm glad there wasn't a second penalty given, or just Paris Saint-Germain got an extra goal at the end of the game because they're Paris Saint-Germain. But that's a worrying statistic. That referee refereed the World Cup final, right? Correct? Mm-hmm. He is one of the top referees in all of Europe, and somebody other than VAR, and again, conspiracy theory number 4, was in his ear and said, "You've got to give this." Sorry, somebody. I'd like to hear the recording. There's no way, after all the angles of looking at it, it clearly came off his chest. I mean, clear. It wasn't even like the Miley one was more of a penalty, even though it wasn't. The Miley one looked more like a penalty, but that is essentially as corrupt a decision you will ever see live on television, apart from Henry's handball against Ireland. That is one of the worst decisions in a football match I've ever seen. The 8 minutes came from, we've given them a free penalty now. Well, we have to get them to win. How much do we pay? It's how much? 10 million a minute, is it? Okay, 80 million, 8 minutes. And they just made it up. There was no injuries. There was nobody on, like Nick Pope the other night. There wasn't, he was on the ground for at least 5 minutes or something. There was nobody injured. So I can't even fathom where they got 8 minutes. I thought it would have been 3 minutes, 2 minutes maybe. But I'm calling it, lads. That's as corrupt as you could possibly get.
There's a lot to digest there. I think for me, like, I've been trying to get my head around this. I'm trying, like, maybe it's that part of me that wants to believe that this shit doesn't happen, which is probably quite naive on my part. But like, the two things in my mind were all this talk about the UEFA rule being different, and there was all these articles being snapped around and sent around, which apparently are not accurate. But seemingly, the Premier League and UEFA have different rules, and if that's the case, that's the case. I haven't seen it fully, but like, I still haven't really seen it like categorically clarified. But like, if that was the case, you can kind of be okay with it. The fact that it's not just makes it harder to make any other decision aside from the referee making a wrong or corrupt decision, as Chris said. I'm almost more aggrieved by the 8 minutes because I think one leads to the other, and I've watched that game back. Bearing in mind, we have. I'm allowed to say this word. We have shithoused in the past, right? As a club, as many clubs have. We didn't really get to do that because we didn't have the ball. Do you know what I mean? So you can't get fouled if you don't have the ball. We were, backs against the wall. Isaac was up there on his own. Everybody else was in two flat lines, just blocking everything. So we didn't get to waste any time. We didn't make any substitutions. So I don't know. I'm like, whatever about the penalty decision, yes, it came off his chest and hit his arm. I completely don't think it should be a penalty. I've played football myself for years, but I'm more like, how the hell was there 8 minutes? And even now, I just still can't get my head around it. Alan, I don't know if you have any take on the 8 minute situation.
The 8 minutes were pulled out of thin air, to put it politely. I've looked back at it since as well, and I did do a bit of a stopwatch thing, and I was like, I could got the 5 minutes, and I was like, even then I was like, if they had said 6 minutes, I would have said fair enough. It's a bit on the lenient side, giving them the extra minute, but just 8 minutes was pulled directly out of thin air, and it's very, very disappointing.
Yeah, lads, let's just be frank here, and I'm going to say it, so call me on it. It was pulled out of a brown paper bag. That's where it was pulled out of. Like, how many minutes?
Society.
8 minutes. Yeah, let's give them 8 minutes. If they could have given them 15 minutes, they would have. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Nothing. And, until we're owned by a country. Lucky we're not, is it?
we don't go too deep into the politics of it all here. I think the one thing that the one really positive thing to take away was Eddie Howe's post-match, not
Classy.
reaction, but like how he handled it. You know, and obviously, he's no stranger to the fact that Arteta absolutely blew a gasket a couple of weeks ago and threw all his toys and was still going on about it 10 days later. Eddie Howe kind of went, look, yeah, we don't feel this is the right decision. We'll look into it. We'll follow the right procedures. He didn't have a whinge. He was more focused on the performance and how proud he was of his team and all that. It just kind of shows you, like, I mean, he doesn't always give a lot away. He's not always the most, like, he plays his cards quite close to his chest. He's good at kind of like, poker face. But there's just that element of class, and you look at it and you go, I'm really glad this guy's our manager. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and that just makes a huge difference. So look, we've touched on this already. We would have taken a draw. We got a draw. The draw means a lot. And Alan, I'm going to come to you for this because, we could have walked away from that game out of the Champions League. Potentially could have walked out of that game completely out of Europe. As it stands, both are very much on the table, and the Champions League qualification is still alive. I know you've been doing the kind of Alan from the Hangover equations flying around your face.
I got the abacus out.
Yes. So can you tell us and of course our listeners, like, what are we looking at for game week 6 here? Obviously, we know we've got Milan coming to town, but from there,
basically, the easiest way to explain it is beat Milan and hope that Dortmund beat PSG. We finish second in the group. If we beat Milan and Dortmund draw with PSG, we still come second in the group. The main factor is we have to beat PSG's result in Dortmund to guarantee we stay in the Champions League. Now, if PSG beat Dortmund, as long as we don't lose, we still have European football, as we'll drop into the Europa League. And as a side note of that, the Europa League finals in Dublin this year, so that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world in my mind, if you know what I mean. But I still want to be in the Champions League. Yes. So I obviously want to stay in the Champions League, but the final being in Dublin is so tempting. Newcastle Liverpool final, finally get revenge for that.
Okay, Alan, here's a question. Yeah, here's a question for you, Alan. Right, here's a question for you. Europa League final against whoever in Dublin, or we get, out of the group and into the semi-final, quarterfinals, or semi-finals of the Champions League, like a continued run in the Champions League.
It is a tough one, but I think getting to a European Cup final would put us into another echelon of where we already are. Look, we're already a big club, but massive clubs get to European Cup finals. That's what I want to be. I want to be a massive club. So it'd be Europa League final.
See, Eddie Howe is a class act, and our Al is a class act. Yeah, I put him on the spot there, and he gave me a real classy answer. Class act, Al. Love it.
That's how Alan rolls. But I think it's a fair point. Look, I mean, the one other thing that went in my mind there is, if we go to a Europa League final and we win, that's the Champions League.
Champions League again,
yes. Regardless of the Premier League. So there's a lot to think about, as well as the Dublin thing, which I had not considered at all.
Yes.
So it does put a little another spin on things. But I think bottom line, Alan, you've said it. We need to go and beat Milan. I think that we all reckon we can do it. We're going to be previewing the Milan game in next week's pod, so we probably don't need to go into too much detail on that just yet.
Yeah.
But we know what we need to do. We need to beat Milan. Be nice if Dortmund could do us a favor. They owe us after giving us 2 good beats.
Absolutely.
And the other thing to call out probably is people might think, Dortmund are already through, so they might have 1 foot, whatever. They're playing for top of the group. Like if PSG beat Dortmund, I think Dortmund will finish second. And when you look at the potential opponents, it actually does make a big difference if you do finish second versus first and so on. So,
and the other thing of that is Dortmund have only lost once in their last 23 home games. So I'm praying that that's a good omen that they're not going to lose again.
Well, fingers crossed. A little teeny tiny percentage of us will be Dortmund fans while they're playing over in what used to be called the Westfalen Stadion, but is now called
Signal Iduna. Yep.
Signal Iduna. We know our stuff here on the Irish Match Show. Right.
I didn't know that. Sorry, I didn't know that.
Some of us know.
Yeah. Glad it wasn't in the quiz. I'm glad it wasn't in the quiz.
It might yet. Moving on then. We do obviously have to talk about then a more recent game. And Alan, you've called them Manchester Red. For some reason, it's very satisfying to call them Manchester Red. I don't know.
Yeah. Pro soccer, man red.
Yeah, that's what it is. And that's another euro in the jar for you, Chris Show. As we know, we welcomed Manchester Red to St. James's Park. The poor misfortunate Manchester Red souls that had the misfortune of taking a 3-hour bus journey because the flight got cancelled. So tough for them. They played on Wednesday. We played on Tuesday. Big wow, especially when they've been doing that for 25, 30 years. Alan, I'm going to come to you first. Like, we started the game with the same 11 again. A little bit of Groundhog Day happening there. Scoreline aside, we were never not in control of that game. I think it's fair to say. Like, but a question that's going around, and I'm still putting it together. Were we excellent, or were they just shite?
It's both. At the end of the day, we were amazing. First whistle, final whistle. We did not stop. Man United were septic. It was depressing watching them. I actually brought one of my mates into the Camden, a Man Red fan, and he sat beside me for the whole game. And at halftime, he turned around to me and he said, "How is that 4-0 up?" He's like, you are battering us." He's like, "Newcastle are everything that we want to be, but we're not getting near you." He's like, "We can't lay a glove on you." We were amazing. First half especially, we realistically should have been 2 or 3 up at halftime minimum. It was just a matter of getting that goal. I thought the floodgates were going to open a little bit, but don't get me wrong. We just, to be fair to someone who gets an awful lot of abuse, Harry Maguire was brilliant. Him and Shaw together at the back were brilliant. They kept Isak not quiet, but they, especially the block from Maguire in the first half from Isak's shot was just great. That was a goal all day. But come here, we battered them. First whistle, they had 5 minutes at the end where the same 11 players have been on the pitch for the last 3 games. Okay, we took Gordon off in the 97th minute or something like that, and Pope on his shoulder, but I don't think Pope's going to be making 70-yard sprints. Like, we were dead on our feet. 88th minute, they decided, we can get something out of this. You just weren't getting anything out of it, lads. We had just where we wanted just, and that was the end of it. We were amazing. It was great.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for game management. You know, this wasn't a game where, I know, like, there's a lot of, like, we should have been 4-0, 5-0, but it wasn't like we were, like, doing everything we can to go and beat them 4-0, 5-0. We were in control, right? Our midfield comfortably in control. The wing backs caused absolute havoc. Yes, we should have scored more, but there was also parts of the game where I felt we were happy to just keep the ball. Like, if they're not going to work harder to get it back, we'll hang on to it. Because like, I saw moments where my initial reaction, sometimes it's that gut instinct of like, why isn't Anthony Gordon kind of tracking back? It might have been like when Anthony came on or something. And then I'm like, these guys are taking those moments in between 2 minutes here and there to just catch the breath, you know, manage their own fitness, knowing that there's a good chance I need to play 95 minutes tonight. So I think that there's an element of, we were completely in control of the game. But I do think there was moments where we were like, especially when the goal went in, obviously, we were happy to recharge whenever we got that opportunity at an individual level, whenever the ball was on the other side of the field and vice versa, which is really impressive because these guys know, and Eddie knows, you know, their limits physically and mentally as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris Show, I'm going to come and talk to you.
Thanks, Paul.
I'd love to hear, I suppose, who stood out for you individually from a Newcastle perspective. But then I'm going to start to pick your brain about, there's a couple of players I want to talk about on the Man United side of things. Alan just said it there. He was there with one of his mates who's a Man United fan who sounds like he was jealous watching us.
Yeah.
And like, if I was a Man United fan watching Marcus Rashford, like that, I would be feeling very different about him and about Man United and about the coach and everything coming out of that game, way more so than coming into it. So let's start by, I suppose, Christian, who stood out for you individually in that game for Newcastle?
Jellington, for me, was Starman. And just based off your question, Paul, and, you know, like Chelsea got shown up for the group of disjointed megastars that they are, Man United, or Man Red, as it were, got shown to the disjointed squad of footballers, let's call them, because they didn't really perform or play football the other night. They were blown off the pitch, like Alan said, by character, strength, teamwork, everything that you want a football team to be, we are. And that's the most proudest thing that we can have about our football club. We do now have a football club and a very, very good football team that's getting lauded every week across Europe for the way that we stick together. If you look at Garnacho versus Almiron, if you look at Rashford versus Gordon, if you look at that young lad, the guy, what's his name, Manu?
Manu.
Yeah.
Manu versus Miley, right? Right. Let's start with the two wides. They couldn't care less from probably about 10 minutes in. It's like as if they didn't like what they've been told to do. And they were like, well, I'm not doing that. I don't care where we are or what this game is. I'm not doing that. And it was so evident. They never tracked back. They left gaps all over the place. Whereas Gordon and Almiron would run from, our goal line to their goal line back and over without even being told because they're playing for the badge. And with Miley, that's so evident as well. With Miley gets the space to be so composed and controlled. I love the way he uses his right and left foot. He doesn't actually turn on either side. He's just like Gerrard, like I said last week. He's so natural in terms of a passer and a link-up midfielder. But Joe Linton and Bruno give him that space. This Minu guy, he had headless chickens around him. I felt sorry for the young man. He was totally lost in midfield. He was totally overawed. Joe Linton took on Man United's three midfielders and battered them, allowing Bruno and Miley just to swan about the place. I honestly, like everyone's saying, oh, it should have been 5-0. That was a 1-0 just demolition, essentially. And I'm going to say it, like, I've never been, I haven't been more proud in a long time. I'm very proud every week because we're so exceptional. But this was the real top because, I really love when we play Man Red and we beat them. I thoroughly enjoy it more than pretty much every other team. And that made my weekend. That was because of just the level of performance. Don't mind about the scores too much, but the level of performance and how we controlled it from minute one to minute end. It was just masterful coaching. Masterful. And I'm so proud of them.
And it's always been a fixture that's carried a hell of a lot of meaning, regardless of where the clubs were in the table. Do you know what I mean? And regardless of where we were in our journey as a club. And I guess it's just going back to history, and particularly going back to the 90s, where there was some, some obviously big results for us and big results for them. So it definitely carries a lot.
I love it when we beat them. Love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Then, Alan, I'm going to come to you and talk. I'm going to tie this into a little bit of Gareth Southgate mindset in England. Even though we're the Irish Mags, we do have opinions and a part to play here. And there's two things for me. One is the obvious one, right? And it's Anthony Gordon for England. And the fact that Anthony Gordon, to this day, still hasn't been capped for England or even called up, as far as I know. How could Gareth Southgate even... if he's watching that game, and I know it's one game, but like big picture stuff, and you've got a Euros coming in, a few months, how could he dream of putting Rashford in ahead of Anthony Gordon based on what you're looking at?
If he's looking, you can't. But as an Irishman, all I can say is I want Gareth Southgate to get a 50-year contract to stay on with England forever because they will never win anything with that man at the helm. He plays like bonkers football. Like he's bringing 7 left backs and playing 3 right backs instead of using any of his left backs and stuff like that. You can't honestly look at Marcus Rashford this season and say he's playing better than Anthony Gordon. He down tools. I genuinely don't think I can remember him making a decent attempt at a sprint at St James's Park. So Anthony Gordon had him in his pocket essentially for the whole game. So the way I look at it is I want Southgate to not pick Gordon because no one e'er look. He'll get his first call up, he'll pull his hamstring on his first sprint, and he'll be out for 6 months. And that's exactly what will happen to us. So stay far away from him, Gareth. We want our Flash Gordon to be safe and healthy.
Yes.
I think it's fair. And it probably, look, Livermento is only just back from an incredibly long injury. But again, now this is all very probably elements of recency bias. And we're looking at a couple of weeks of a sample set. And we'll know a lot more in a few months. But like looking at Livermento there over the last 2 or 3 games. And let's imagine he's what? 85%, 90% where he could be in terms of his physical like fitness and match experience.
Yeah.
if I was the England manager there, I don't know, Chris, about you, but like I'd be going, "Oh, I've got an option here." Compared to what France have in the likes of Hakimi or even like Theo Hernandez, like that's the dream to see a player like that.
They have to do something about this, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but could he not play for 3 national teams?
You can play for Italy,
You're right.
Portugal, or England, I think.
Yeah,
No,
so
I think
somebody is
I
going to
don't
do it,
believe-
isn't it?
I don't believe, even though his name sounds Italian, I actually think it's England, Portugal, and I believe it's Scotland. But I could
Was
be
it?
wrong.
I thought I heard someone say
Oh, really?
Italy.
I have a feeling, yeah, that it's definitely England. It's definitely Portugal, and I.
Oh no, isn't Alan Gordon is Scotland and England, or Gordon is Scotland and England, isn't he? As well.
Yeah, and so is Harvey Barnes, and so is Elliot Anderson. So the Scotland scouts don't have far to go. If
I
they're
mean,
going
does nobody have Irish grandparents anymore? Like, what's going on
Yeah,
here?
it's not like
That's
it
what I
used
was
to
trying to do. You need to try to find some Irish grandparents in them.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
somewhere along the line, like some way down back. But
Jack Charlton would be raging now. That's a different trip down memory lane. Cool. Look, unfortunately, the game was slightly mired. Again, like I feel like we're having these lovely games, and then just this cloud, and it's a pretty dark cloud, really. And I'm talking about Nick Pope. So Nick Pope has basically dived for a ball that didn't get through because I think it was Scher that made an incredible block. And I think next week, lads, I have a lot to talk about Fabian Scher. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
The latest kind of the earliest whispers, Chris, you were talking about 4 months, I think, for Nick Pope.
4 to 5 months, yeah.
Dependent. Like that's for a player that's basically kept us in Paris there, and the saves he's been making. How are we just that unlucky? How heartbreaking?
Right. This is going to tie into my bad take, but I won't go there yet. Right, but it will tie into my bad take. Right. Let's just call a spade here, gents. It's 5 months. Yeah. If anyone watched it, and I'm sure our listeners did watch it and saw the replay, very innocuous dive. Yeah, he was going to block it, but it wasn't as he was stretching too much. It seemed like his elbow landed and it kind of carried his arm a little bit forward, and you could just see it. If you watch it in slow-mo, it goes, and you can kind of see it in the back of his jersey. It is gross. So go back and watch it again. Like, now that you know what you're looking for, it's like you can actually see it go pop. And like this is I mean, talk about getting sent tests from above. I mean, we've got 14 players, a first team squad out, completely out, guys that would absolutely be playing for us, no doubts whatsoever. And when I saw him putting his arm up, I'm just glad Man Red decided to stop playing, because I actually thought they were going to continue to play, even though he was lying on the ground with his hand in the air. But once I saw him put his hand in the air, and then I saw his grimace on his face, I was like, no, this is really serious. Now, Alan, I'll let you say it, Alan, but Alan made a very good point when we were discussing this before around Calvin Phillips and Calvin Phillips' shoulder, and that Calvin Phillips has had 2 operations on his shoulder. This will be Nick Pope's second operation on his shoulder. And for a goalkeeper, that is way more bad news than 5 months out, I can tell you. And I hate to say this, but I'm not sure that we'll see a lot of Nick Pope going forward. You know, we might get to see him at the end of this season to play a couple of games and wave goodbye. I don't think he'll be our goalkeeper next season. I'm just saying it. Sorry, everybody. I know we all love him, but there you go.
It's so tough to hear, because like he's people go on about his kicking and it's all the footwork, all that kind of stuff, but you know, your goalkeeper is there to stop the ball going in the net, and he's consistently done that. I mean, he did it for Burnley in a Burnley team that was, it was Burnley, right? No disrespect to Burnley, of course.
Their goal was peppered.
He's done it consistently for us, peppered, and he, like, clean sheets, big saves. He's a great FPL asset to have as well. But I'm just devastated for him. Like, again, I don't want to jump to conclusions. We'll wait and see what happens, of course. Like, all the advances in surgeries and so on and so forth. But like you said, it is a goalkeeper. It is a shoulder. It is obviously, they go hand in hand. No pun intended.
Can he get a new shoulder, Paul? Can he get a new shoulder? Like, like the $65 million man? Like, just like a
if that's the case, Chris, I might get one for myself, because I did mine about a year and a half ago and I can still feel it. And I did not have the medical resources that Nick Pope has. So we all wish him, obviously, a speedy recovery.
Yeah,
there is already some, I don't know if it's early nonsense talk about us potentially being, looking for replacements. Probably actually that'll carry us into our news segment. And Krisha, we can skip ahead to that because there is already early tweets going around about some David De Gea rumors.
Yeah, I mean,
Is there any substance to this, or is this
guys? I genuinely believe there is substance to this. Yeah, I really do. But where in Christ's name? Now, Alan, I know you're looking at me like that, but name another goalkeeper that we can go and get in January. Just name one that doesn't hit 350.
That's exactly it. He is on 300. Well, he was on 350 grand a week. He turned down a move to Saudi Arabia on more money because he wants to play for a European elite club and he wants to stay on the same type of wages. David De Gea will be nowhere near St. James's Park anytime soon.
I love it. I just had to go to Alan there for a second because I was just getting concerned that it might be true.
Not worry. We've got two conflicting views.
Yeah.
we have to go back. We have to go back. I'm perfectly happy with using Dubravka. I love him. I like the guy. He's a great goalkeeper. What's wrong with him stepping in for the rest of the season? So we've got Calvin Phillips coming in with his second shoulder injury on top of himself, who basically can hardly play better than Lewis Miley. And then the other rumors is Guirassy.
Guirassy. Yep.
Guirassy, yeah, the Stuttgart striker. He's 27, scored a lot of goals. I like him. He's like a Papa Cisse, but a bit faster. I like him a lot. He's like a mixture of Demba Ba and Papa Cisse put together. That's some combination. He's lethal, essentially. But, Man Red are in for him. Arsenal are in for him. We're in for him. But I think if I'm going to be honest with you, gents, I think our business is probably done. I know Eddie Howe says, we're not even looking at it yet. I think our business is already done. I think on January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we'll have 2 or 3 players in over there in the window. Straight away.
Alan's crossing his fingers.
Yeah.
I think he's I love the reference actually, I suppose the comparisons between Papi Cisse and Demba Ba. I mean, if we had either of them, we'd be delighted.
Yeah.
There was talks of Papi Cisse actually training in Macclesfield a few weeks ago, but that
kind of died off. Yeah.
The only thing I've heard on Guirassy is
62, I think.
Yeah, it might be slim, but I wouldn't be putting any hard-earned cash on it. The one thing I did hear about Guirassy, I don't know if it's Guirassy or Guirassy, but I believe he has a 15 or 17 million release clause.
Yeah,
but that would have to be paid up front, and that's something that we've watched out for in the past. The flip side of that is, and I don't know the ins and outs, but does a new calendar year mean that we have a bit more leeway? I'm not sure, but only time will tell, I suppose.
The other thing about Guirassy is he's also off to the AFCON, so if we go and sign him, we lose him for a month of the season as well. So I can't see that one happening either, unfortunately. Hate to put a dampener onto that.
Papi Cisse it is. Super
All
stuff, right?
Nice.
We'll continue with I suppose that because that took us up ahead to January, and there's been so much this week between PSGs and penalties and Man Uniteds and goalkeepers and everything that goes on in a standard week as a Newcastle fan.
Yeah.
Just to top a little cherry, Alan, onto the icing of this cake that is laced with ingredients. There was a little FA Cup draw, and I think I didn't actually watch the draw live, but I know that a tie came out that said Arsenal are welcoming Liverpool. I think it's Arsenal at home, and you're like, that's the biggest tie of the round. False. Newcastle have drawn Sunderland in the third round of the FA Cup. The first time that we will meet in 8 years. And Alan, I'm going to come to you for this because you're the man with all the facts.
So basically, we've all been dreaming of this day since we came up. They went down. As Dwight Gale said, the Mags are going up and yous are going down. Okay, so let's be honest. Our record against them recently has been quite atrocious, to put it politely. We've lost 6 of the last 7 and we've won winning 10 against the old enemy. But they were all
he starts with the positives, Krisho, doesn't he? He really gets us going.
No.
Yeah, I'm just writing these down.
This was all under the stewardship of Mike Ashley, and as we all know, that man definitely cared about Newcastle and always wanted to see the best of us. He did all right. This is our new owner's first attempt at some bragging rights locally. I can safely say Amanda and Merdad will turn around to Eddie and say, look, it's not going to affect your job in any way, but we really, really, really need to beat this. It's a massive, massive game. And it's a weird one to say. Like, you always say, oh, you want your local rivals to be relegated. I hate to admit this. I'd love to see Sunderland come back up because it's 6 points guaranteed every season at this stage because we will beat them. And we haven't had it in so long. It's a massive, massive game for us. And I just cannot wait. Definitely going to be the early game. I don't think they're going to give us a 5:30 p.m. kickoff for that because I don't think Northumbria Police will allow that to happen.
No.
It's going to be the early kickoff. So it's looking like January 6th, probably the 12:30 kickoff.
Yeah.
We're all looking forward to it. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, wow. That's going to be some meetup. That's going to be some meetup for the Irish Mags.
It certainly will.
Holy Jesus.
That's a hell of a meetup. I can tell you now, I'm traveling somewhere for that. Don't book anything yet. This is just Alan speculating that it's on at 12:30 on the 6th.
Yeah.
And we trust what Alan says on this show, but just don't spend any money on it until everything's confirmed. But it does make, like, my recollection of our recent FA Cup third round exploits have been Sheffield Wednesday and Cambridge over the last couple of seasons. It's not always something we've maybe done well in or potentially prioritized. I don't know. This is totally different as well, as well as the fact that we know Eddie and team want to go out and compete on all fronts, as stretched as we are, to add Sunderland into it.
Paul, I heard a thing over. I'm sure our listeners heard it too. This is going to be Mitrovic's debut. He's only going to play one match for Newcastle. He's going to score a hat trick. He's then going to headbutt. He's going to headbutt somebody and get sent off. And then we win 3-0. Hooray, Mitrovic. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming.
You may as well bring Jack Colback back as well. Like, the gang's all here, as they say.
We've already decided to bring back. Pape Cisse. Krisho, hold on to your bad takes for the section that's about to come up. Look, as if January isn't going to be interesting and exciting enough, depending on what goes on in Europe, depending on what goes on in the transfer window, injured players that have to return, which is going to feel like new signings when you bring in the likes of Barnes, And even I feel like Callum Wilson hasn't been there for 8. It's probably been about 4 games, but it just feels like a long time. So January is going to be a big month for Newcastle United, definitely here in the Irish Mags.
Oh yes.
Speaking of the Irish Mags, we're going to move on to the next section, which is our community spotlight. And for me, to be honest, this is one of my favorite sections of the show because we get to talk about the now famous Alan's crack of the week. Oh dear, I said that out loud. We're going to do my highlight of the week in the community and the aforementioned Krisho's bad take of the week. And I feel like he's got a few to choose from. So, Alan, I would like to come to you first. Tell us Alan's crack of the week.
The crack of the week can only be one thing. So we were very, very heavily outnumbered in the Camden on Saturday night for the 8 p.m. kickoff. As I said, it was 75% Christmas parties, 23% Manchester United fans, and then the 5 of us sitting there going, oh, dear God, we need to win this game. So the first 10, 15 minutes, you could hear we were getting a bit of abuse, but as we were getting on top, as we were battering them, the easiest way to explain it, as we were battering them, all you could hear was us cheering at the telly. Then all of a sudden, a couple of Arsenal fans joined in with us and were like, we hate Man Red too, so we're going to join in and we want you to do well. Now, I reminded them of Arteta's meltdown and they soon disappeared. But come here, what are you going to do? I had to do it. So my crack of the week is the final whistle. Myself and Dean just screaming at the top of our lungs as the Camden emptied. It was beautiful. It was just such a sweet moment where I'm going, yes, we have absolutely ruined all of their nights. They're all going home to give out, and I'm going to have a couple more pints and have a great night. That's my crack of the week.
Oh yes, love it, Al.
Like it's for me, it reminds me of probably my highlight of the last 2 years being a Newcastle fan. I was at the Spurs game, the 6-1, where we're 5-0 up on 21 minutes. And I watched fans walk out of that stadium 21 minutes into a game, and it reminds me of that, Alan. I mean, fair play to them for hanging on that long. Maybe there was some free drink or they were at a function or something. The fact that they
no free drink in the Camden.
No.
Not yet. But yeah, that's quality, and fair play to those that turned up and got to do the Jacob Murphy wave.
The wave, yes,
yeah,
love to hear that. Super. We'll jump onto my highlight of the week in the Irish Mags community, and I need to shout out Cathal again. So Cathal is our man behind the scenes, and I mentioned it already. You know, because us three on this show are of a certain age. TikTok is a bit of a mystery to us. Well, I'm speaking for myself mainly, but I had to say some of Cahill's TikToks that he put out there already have been cracking. He's obviously put out an intro one for us with some interesting / questionable avatars representing the three of us. We did see some of the ones that didn't make it, so maybe in hindsight it's actually not that bad. But his most I think his most recent TikTok that he put out was probably taking the piss of himself because he was getting called out for being a secret Chelsea fan. And he's owned it, and he's gone out and said it out loud. So if you're not sure what I'm referring to, and if you're on the TikTok, get on and look up at Irish Mags NUFC, and you'll know what I'm talking about. And top work by Cathal, of course.
Yes,
now,
absolutely.
The moment we've all been waiting for episode 2, and this week, Chris Show. I need to hear, and Alan needs to hear, and our listeners need to hear your bad take of the week.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It isn't as look. I'm just going to go with it. Okay. Okay. We got 14 injuries. The 14 injuries have been caused by Eddie Howe and his training plan and the way he trains the players on a daily basis. He is overcoaching them. He's putting them under too much pressure. They're not getting enough downtime and rest time. It's nothing to do with the games, 3 games a week. The bad take of the week is Eddie Howe and his coaching staff are responsible for the 14 injuries. Okay. Now, take a breath there, right? Breathe in there for a second, okay?
Let's just digest that. So what we're hearing is overcoaching has led to the injuries, basically.
And and the fact that it's not Madrid. They don't eat salad, and they don't have lovely sunny evenings off to stroll, around a beautiful city. They're in a damp, kind of cloudy, let's say Mordorish area of North England, where it's kind of like, it's a bit dark, it's a bit down. I know they train indoors as well, but look, at all jokes aside, Eddie Howe, the profile they're looking for, why they went for Anthony Gordon and paid 45 million is because he is athletic. Yes, he's young, he's fast, he's very coachable, right? He can turn in left and right, come in from the left or right, or he can play down the middle. Perfect. Tick, 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 tick. Now, some of the players that Eddie Howe inherited, he's kind of, with diet, with working with the coaching staff, they're looking a lot wave-beater. You saw Elliot Anderson one time, he took off his top, or who else? Murphy. These guys they're all ripped. Every one of them, they're all like tanks. Look at Jolinton, my God. But essentially, the bad take here is this is like Derek Wright numbers, and I think all our listeners will know what I mean. This is 14 injuries. Yeah. Now, some of them have been freak, but what I'm suggesting here, right, and really listen right carefully, right, everybody, Dan Byrne missed a header and he just fell on his arse, but yet he's out for an indeterminate period of time. Botman has a knee injury, in inverted commas, but nobody knows exactly what's going on with it or how it could have been so much more worse than the great surprise I think we're going to get next week that he's back. It could have been like 9 to 12 months out. Murphy's did his shoulder. Pope's done his shoulder. The lads, Willock, a reoccurrence of his Achilles.
So Harvey Barnes broke his toe somehow?
Yeah, underneath his toe or something.
He broke the knuckle connecting his toes to his foot, basically, trying to run.
I mean, come on. Look, right. The bad take here, like I said, and I'll reiterate it for the third time, is that I feel, and certain people in our Newcastle supporting community feel, that these players are not the athletes required to take Newcastle forward. There's at least 8 or 9 of them that we need to replace in the next 2 years for much younger, much more athletic, much more coachable players. And we won't have as many injuries because they will just be genetically and physically better prepared for what Eddie Howe requires from them. And that's my bad take, you know.
That's not asking for too much at all. Just some genetically enhanced, you know, impenetrable,
super players.
Hey guys, I'm just giving my bad take, guys.
Yeah, that's totally fair. No, look, I mean, devil's advocate, you might say, we're a high intensity team. You know, we play on the edge. We ask a lot. Eddie asks a lot from the team, right?
Yeah, he does.
And you know, if you're like, there's a lot of talk about a lot more hamstring injuries happening in the Premier League in general, right? And we've probably not done too badly on the grand scheme of things, particularly since Maxi left, because he used to love doing his hamstring. But the one thing that I think is important to remember, on top of everything, regardless of injuries and even when it comes to performances, like, it's not just the fact that we've had 3 games a week. This is different to a Champions League group that might have had, and no disrespect, Red Star Belgrade, or, I mean, I was going to say Copenhagen, but they're even beating Man United. But like, if we had slightly lower level of team or lower level intensity in those games, you might say something. But we're going out and we're playing PSG, Milan, Dortmund, and then we're going off into the Carabao Cup. And we were playing City, United, and then Chelsea coming up. Like, the physical toil of these big games, and then add to that the mental toil of like the continuous kind of we go again nature of it, right? On top of, the emotional trauma of penalty decisions and injury, like, there's so much there. And we could go out now, and we're going to talk about Everton and Tottenham shortly. We're going to spend just a minute or two on those 2 games because we do feel like we already know the likely 11s. We could go out and lose both those games, like, genuinely. Like, Everton's a hard place to go. There's an awful lot going on in that club. Tottenham, they're obviously just come out of a really good draw with Manchester City, so like, people need to be okay with that. We've outdone ourselves again, you know what I mean, and we're still stretched as it is. And I think rather than jumping to conclusions of like, oh, it's the coaching and it's there's a lot going on here. And we talked about January. Let's all get to January. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Agreed.
Super stuff. Thank you for that, Krisho and Alan, for crack of the week and bad take of the week. There'll be more on those next week. Right, we're into the latter stages now of the pod. We'll do a quick preview on. We've actually 2 games. 2 games will be played and completed by the time we get together to record again, lads. So,
yes,
Alan, I'm going to come to you to talk about Everton. As I mentioned, we have Everton away in Goodison Park.
Yes,
we have a lot going on. I think we all, unless we're picking up that there's any players due to come back, I think we have an idea of the lineup. So where I'd come to you is, how do you think we'll get on against Everton? And you know what? I'm gonna get a prediction off you so I can hold it against you.
Yeah. Basically, I do think we might see Louis Hall come in and take over from Trippier, who will get a rest, because 33, 34 years old Trippier may not have the legs that we all wish he had, but it's the only change I can really, bar Dubravka obviously coming in for Pope because obvious reasons. But yeah, they're the only changes that are going to happen. My prediction is going to be a draw. I'm going to go with a 1-1. Listen, in their last 6 games, Everton have 4 wins, a draw and a loss, and the loss was 3-0 to Man United, and that was the most ridiculous 3-0 loss I'd ever seen in my whole life. They actually battered United and just couldn't score. So I'm gonna say, listen, we get a point, get out of there. Goodison is an awful place to go to. They do have very, very good fans when they're behind the team. They seem to be behind Dyche and the team at the minute, so it will be a tough place to go to. So the only thing I can say is, now don't be wrong, we've gone there before and pulled results out of the sky. Could well do it again, but hand over heart, I'm gonna go with a 1-1 draw.
It's kind of a game for centre backs. One of my memories is that game where didn't Lascelles score an own goal?
Yeah, and a goal.
And then he scored because it hit off the same guys. Yeah. And the other one was it Florian Lejeune that got those 2 late?
Yes. The 2 boysies.
So, keep an eye on look, if you're gonna now, again, you do what you want with your money, listeners, but if you wanted to put on a sneaky bet, maybe back in a centre half to score wouldn't be a bad option.
Agreed.
Show.
Yeah.
Also away from home, this time to London. On
Yikes.
Sunday, we go and play Tottenham. Again, not going to be much between Thursday and Sunday, I would suspect, with lineups. Maybe there's rotation from one game to the next, but I suppose to give us your take on how do you think would fare up against Tottenham, what you expect to see, and of course, predictions so that Alan can hold that against you when something goes wrong.
I expect to see Botman back 5 at the back, or Dummett in there 5 at the back, 5-4-1 with, and Wilson's out for a while, isn't he? So Isaac playing through the middle, so 5-4-1. Now I know everybody listens is gonna go, what? Now, and you think, why would we do that? Just soak it all up. Soak up the stadium, soak up the atmosphere, soak up the early pressure, catch them on the hop. Yeah, we'll switch it to a 4-3-3 as it comes into the second half. And I'm calling it, we will beat Tottenham Hotspur 3-1.
3-1. Wow. Big calls,
Yeah.
big calls. And again, you mentioned in the bad take ratio, Tottenham are also ravaged with injuries, right?
Yeah,
they haven't had some of the games we're playing, so good,
Tottenham
interesting.
Tottenham seem to fall over a lot of. I know they've been doing well lately, but at home, just certain games, and I think they've always underestimated us for a long time, and I really believe, that we're going to catch them on the hop next Sunday.
Fingers crossed that we can get through Thursday relatively unscathed, because obviously
That's
we're asking a lot to get a prediction, when there's a game to play in between that. Excellent, great. Well, look, if anybody is traveling, obviously they are both away games, so there'll be no crack to be had from the Irish Mags over in Newcastle. Other than that, though, Alan, and that'll take us up to our upcoming kind of events and announcements section. Alan, tell our listeners about any meetups, especially with those 2 away games. We may have an increased crowd turning up for the meetups.
We may do. Obviously Thursday in the Bleaker, the usual. I will be there from say 7 o'clock, depending on how early I can escape from work. Do my best, yourself. Sunday is a 3:30 kickoff, I'm fairly sure. So that again, we will be meeting up from 3:30 onwards, really. So come here. If you're anyway around Dublin, get yourself into the Bleaker. I'm not too sure, but there may be some whispers of another meetup in other parts of the countries. So keep an eye on our socials and you will definitely know about that. Talking about the Northern Ireland Mags and maybe even the Connacht Mags having a bit of a meet-up for the Sunday game. So fingers crossed, as they say.
There's whispers of Cork, I believe, as well. So keep an eye out on the socials and, of course, the WhatsApp groups. And Alan, one final thing. There is all the rumours of a Christmas meetup. I don't think anything's been officially finalised, but can you confirm these rumours are true?
There is rumours of us trying to organise it. Actually organising it and trying to organise it are 2 very different things for people's availability at the minute, so we cannot guarantee anything at the minute. But if you were to keep probably the Chelsea Carabao Cup game, I think that's a Wednesday night, or maybe even the game before that, who I cannot remember who we're playing at the minute, that weekend free, that'd be a good idea if you wanted to come to the Christmas parties. But can't guarantee
Once
anything.
Again, don't base all your life plans around Alan's speculation, as we've learned. But more to follow and come very soon. And the last piece of news, Krisho, is relating to our engagement. Can you give us a quick update on what our listeners and members should expect to see there?
Yeah, just like I talked about last week, the GoFundMe has had more donations based off, us discussing it. So we're 35 quid away from our limit on the GoFundMe, which will allow us to buy many flags. And do, well, not many flags, but at least 11, maybe 10, or 8. That means that we can give out more. We can set up the room in the Bleakers, because also I think at the Christmas party, and again this is not confirmed, but I think I'm gonna speak to Alan about getting some black and white paint and doing up above in the Bleakers, in doing the room up, so that we could really just own it. This is our place. This is our manor, as they say. That's essentially what's happened in engagement. I don't know whether, like I said, had we shown up at our merch store, but Alan, I think you said that the merch store will be kind of closed for the time being, but will reopen.
Will reopen after Christmas. Look, the Christmas order went in and around the end of November. It's very, very hard for us to have a constant store open. So what happens is he'll open for block orders. When he hits a certain amount of orders, he'll throw the order in for us. But as you can see, the gear is top quality, and it's very, very warm, which I absolutely love. So yeah, it will be reopening in January. I can't give you a date yet, but I can say it will reopen for orders, and there may even be some new items being added, which I will definitely have to try model again, as I always do.
Alan, you are, just because I think people were asking about it, about our gear and stuff. You are, I think I'm waiting for mine too, but
yeah,
this top here, there's going to be a silhouette of the Tyne Bridge. It's in kind of, sunrise orange and yellow. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, everybody. Yes. So we'll be rocking those fairly soon, but you can look to get them when it opens back up in January as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, back to you,
Shout
Paul.
out to, I know Jamie does a lot of work in that space as well. So shout out to Jamie.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Super. And the final piece of news to share with you guys, again, looking forward to January. There will be another engagement survey coming up on behalf of the Irish Mags, where we'll be looking for your thoughts, opinions, and feedback on all things Irish Mags related. So do keep an eye out. But again, as we said, not till January, but there'll be more information to follow. Right, chaps. Chris, are you still with us, or is the limp slip starting to come out your ears?
It's coming. It is starting to come out my ears slightly, but it's been held in by this headset. Yeah, I'm seeing two screens kind of shake in front of me, but that might be the Guinness I had at the weekend. I'm not sure.
There's a mixed concoction of things. Well, yeah, I think we did promise the listeners that we would do a little quiz before signing off today, and I'm going to make time for it. We've gone a little bit over, but you know what? I'm going to make time for it because at the top of the podcast, I said that we were going to talk about what we want for Christmas, but I'm going to change it to what I want for Christmas, and it's to see you two fighting against each other to win the first ever weekly quiz, which we have entitled the Irish Magstermind Challenge.
I love it.
I love it,
lads. So, Chris already has his thinking hat on, Alan.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to do the same. And lads, seeing as this is the Irish Mags, the theme of our quiz is Irish Mags. So what I'm going to be doing is I have a list in front of me of Irish players who have played for Newcastle in the Premier League era. I'm going to alternate between the two of you to give me a selection up until the point where if you can't get one, I'll probably give you about 10, 15 seconds. Then it goes on offer, at which point it will be open to the floor. So this is basically Premier League era, which would be 1992-93 onwards. So we don't have to go back too far. And the list in front of me that I have here has 12 names on it.
Is this Irish and Northern Irish, or just
these
Irish?
Are Republic of
Ireland. Okay.
Republic of Ireland, yes.
Had to get that just to be confirmed.
Clear. That's a fair point, yes.
Just so you can add it into Google now. I've seen your fingers do it.
So eyes on me. We're going to start straight away. And because he's not feeling the best this week, we're going to go, and I'm going to go to Krisho first. Krisho, can you give me a selection, please?
Stephen Carr.
Stephen Carr is correct. 107 appearances for Newcastle gets you a point. Alan.
Shay Given.
Shay Given is in... No, it's correct. 463 appearances for the club. Krisho.
Norwich red card, Kieran Clark.
Kieran Clark, the man who apparently is responsible for Joe Linton's emergence as a centre midfielder due to that red card he picked up one day. Correct. 129 appearances for Newcastle gets you a point. Alan.
Damien Duff.
Damien Duff. 86 appearances for Newcastle.
Really?
Gets you a point. Yeah, quite a few. 6 goals. Krisho. It's a bad sign if his eyes are closed already, isn't it, Alan?
No, remember, guys. I mean, honestly, my head is swimming. Hang on. I was going to say John Anderson, but it was a lot longer ago.
No, we're sticking with the Premier League era, so it would be the 92-93 season onwards.
Give me a second. Hang on. Come on,
we need the music, Alan.
I'm sorry. I'm telling you now, my brain is completely blank. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's very poor performance.
For the moment, while continue to think, because it goes on offer to Alan. Alan, do you have another?
Andy O'Brien.
Offer? Andy O'Brien, centre half, is correct. 169 games for the club.
Ooh.
Gets you a point. Joined from Bradford in 2001. Krisho, you all right there?
Yeah, I'm desperately thinking. Hang on.
That thinking hat isn't going as well as you thought it would be, would it, Alan?
I
Alan
remember now.
I can tell you now, folks, if you're not watching this on YouTube, now would be a good time to jump over. Alan has the biggest smile on his face, and he's not done yet.
No.
Krisho,
Go ahead.
anything?
Go ahead. No, I don't.
Alan.
Go ahead.
Leon Best.
Leon Best. 46 appearances between 2010 and 2012. Scored 10 goals. Makes it 4-2 to Alan.
Will I make it 5 really easily?
Yeah,
You know what? It's open to the floor now. Unless Krisho shouts his name to stop you, have at it.
Stephen Ireland.
Stephen Ireland is correct between 2000. Well, it was in the year 2011 from January to May. On loan from Aston Villa, I believe.
Yes.
These are all the bad times.
Oh yeah, come here. I followed the club during the bad times. I wasn't a Man United fan like you.
I'm sick. I'm sick. You guys are just keep beating me down. I don't have anybody else. Yeah, honestly.
Rob Elliott.
Oh my
Rob
God.
Elliott is correct. 68 appearances for Newcastle between 2011 and 2020.
No,
Listeners are shouting at their various car radios and phones and the like.
I'm now drawing a bit of a blank. How many have we gotten so far? 8.
So far you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've had 7, so there are 5 more on the list. What I would say to you is, sorry, I'm wrong. You have got 8. I hadn't marked Andy O'Brien. You have 4 remaining on this list. 2 of them I would definitely expect you to get in terms of the recency.
Maybe we've forgotten about them.
You didn't get one. So
I'm gonna say, right. My Limson is getting it right. Jeff bloody Hendrick.
Jeff lads. Jeff Hendrick, the most recent Irish player.
Irish Perlo. Do you know what I mean?
Irish Perlo. From 2020 to 2022, 27 appearances. Gets Krisho back on the board, and it's 6-3 in favor of Alan. I'm going to give you
wait. There's one more. There's one more. Ted mentioned them last week. Daryl Murphy.
He didn't play in the Prem, did he?
Krisho, I can tell you Daryl Murphy from 2016-17 season.
The championship season.
Appearances. So I have him on my list. To be honest, I'm going to give it to you. Like when I said Premier League era, it's from that 92-93 onwards. It's enough, more than enough. And Alan, I mean, he needs the help, all the help you can give.
Yeah. There's who else have we got now?
6-4 on the board, and there's 2 more, which I'm not going to lie, a little bit tricky, I would say.
I know one of them is I think he was a tricky little winger and might have played 1 or 2 games for us. A blondie young flick called Alan O'Brien.
I can tell you, Alan O'Brien made 12 appearances for Newcastle between 2004 and 2007 before joining Hibernian. Gets you a point, Alan.
Yeah. Now I'm struggling.
1 more. So the one that remains on my list here is, I mean, he's probably the oldest in his age, and it's the one that dates back the furthest on the list.
Oh. Is it David Kelly?
He had to be the old league one.
It's not David Kelly. David Kelly actually left before we come up to that Premier League. So we're going to go 1 more. I'm going to throw you a clue, lads. We are pushed for time. You may know this guy from his managerial duties in the Ireland setup, but not the first team. In the Republic of Ireland international setup. I believe it's 21s. If it's not 21s, it might be 19s.
Jim Crawford?
Jim Crawford, Alan, is correct. Made 3 appearances for Newcastle United.
I never knew he played for Newcastle.
And 1998.
I never knew he played for us. That's mad.
He certainly did. And I believe back then he was called James. That's some trivia for you.
Wow. Now that's so Alan wins.
That's my championship manager, football manager head. So for this week's Irish Magstermind, It is Alan out in front on 8, ahead of Krisho on 4. Well done, Alan.
Well done, Alan. Well done, Alan. Well done.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank
we'll
you.
We'll put a little one beside your name every week, so we'll just switch it back
Just
and
one
forth.
for this week. And of course, we'll return next week for another round of the Irish Mastermind. Right, chaps. I think that is a good time for us to wrap up the episode, and that will bring episode 2 of the Irish Mags show to a close. You can find the links for all the Irish Mag socials in the description below, wherever you're listening or watching, along with links to the Flag Fund. We will update our links with links to the merch store when the time is right. You'll also find our contact details there for anybody who might be interested in partnering with us as an official sponsor of the Irish Mags show, now that we're officially up and running. Thank you to everyone who has watched or listened today and, of course, last week. We will have a new episode released every single Wednesday, both in audio and video form. So for now, another big week ahead for the Irish Mags, for Newcastle United. All we can say then is, Hawaii the lads, Slán go fóil, and see you all very soon. Say goodbye, lads.
Hawaii the lads. See you next week, lads.
Hawaii the lads. Slán lad. Good luck. See you later.
Slán and
Slán lad.
Goodbye and good luck. Have a good week.